As the doors of the Galactic Council chamber slid open with a hiss, Captain Ethan Stark stepped into a cavernous room that buzzed with the low, urgent murmurs of 100 alien dialects. Above, the transparent dome revealed the swirling cosmos, planets and stars dotting the infinite black, a silent reminder of what was at stake. Below the council members, a kaleidoscope of interstellar diversity turned their multitude of eyes towards him, their gazes ranging from openly curious to subtly hostile. Ethan's heart pounded a fierce rhythm against his ribs as he walked to the human delegation's station, the weight of his mission grounding his every step. Today he wasn't just a diplomat. He was the shield against a crippling demand that could bankrupt his world. As he settled into place, the towering figure of Ambassador Zorax, the Thalaxian chief diplomat, rose to address the assembly. His voice, when it boomed through the chamber, was both a growl and a whisper, carried by the advanced acoustics of the space. Members of the Galactic Council, Zorax began, his eyes, a striking shade of molten silver flashing with calculated intensity. The time has come for all civilizations under our protection to contribute more substantially to our collective security. Specifically, we require that humanity triples its tribute to the Central Fleet Fund. A collective gasp echoed around the room, with several smaller member species shifting uncomfortably. The demand was more than just steep. It was a stranglehold. Ethan felt a cold fury settle in his chest. He stood abruptly, his chair scraping loudly against the polished floor. With all due respect, Ambassador Zorax, Ethan's voice carried clearly, tinged with a controlled anger. Such a demand is not only unfair but unsustainable. It threatens to destabilize our economy and jeopardize the very welfare of our citizens. Zorax cut him off with a dismissive wave of his hand, his voice icy as the dark void outside. Captain Stark, need I remind you that peace comes at a price? Your contributions ensure the security provided by the fleet. Without it, your world and many others would fall prey to the chaos that lurks beyond our borders. The chamber fell silent, the tension palpable. Ethan's jaw clenched as he met Zorax's gaze, the challenge clear. This was more than a political gambit. It was a test of wills, of endurance. And as the murmurs resumed, with eyes now turning back and forth between the human and Thalaxian delegates, Ethan knew the battle for the heart and soul of the council had just begun. The fight to save humanity from this crippling tribute was not just his to wage, it was his to win. The corridors of the Galactic Council's headquarters were a labyrinth of gleaming metal and soft ambient light. As Ethan Stark navigated through them, the whispers of his hurried conversation with Minister Adrian Vale echoed off the walls, blending with the low hum of alien dialects. They had retreated to a secluded alcove, away from prying eyes and even more curious ears, their faces illuminated by the glow of a holographic map displaying economic projections and potential allies. Minister, we can't sustain this level of tribute. It would cripple us, Ethan insisted, pointing to the figures that showed a stark decline in Earth's reserves over the next decade. Adrian, an older man with deep-set eyes and a calm demeanor that belied his strategic mind, nodded gravely. I know, Ethan, and it's not just us. I've heard rumblings from other sectors. There's a growing discontent among the lesser powers. They're feeling the pinch as well. Ethan's eyes lit up with a determined fire. Then let's use that. If we can show a united front, perhaps we can push back on the Thalaxians' demands. We need a coalition, and fast. The next days were a whirlwind of covert diplomacy. Ethan and Adrian split their efforts, reaching out to the delegates of other civilizations who might share their plight. Each meeting was held in utmost secrecy, in dimly lit rooms and at odd hours, ensuring that no word could reach the Thalaxian spies likely lurking among them. One such meeting took place in a small, nondescript room, furnished only with a circular table and chairs that automatically adjusted to the physiology of each sitter. Here, Ethan met with representatives from the Cygnian and Vortellan sectors, both known for their distaste for the Thalaxian heavy-handedness. We all stand to lose if these demands continue, Ethan argued passionately, his hands spread wide as he leaned forward on the table. But together, we can demand a reassessment of the tribute system. It's time the Galactic Council serves all its members, not just the powerful ones. The Cygnian delegate, a slender being with skin that shimmered like the surface of a starlit ocean, nodded slowly. We have felt the burden of these tributes for too long. Perhaps it is time for change. The Vortellen, a hulking figure whose deep voice vibrated the air itself, added, "My people are warriors. We do not bow easily. You have our support, Captain Stark." With each agreement, Ethan felt a small victory, but he knew the hardest part was yet to come. Convincing the Galactic Council to change a system that had enriched the powerful at the expense of the weak would be no small feat. As he returned to his quarters late one evening, the station's windows offering a view of the endless cosmos beyond, Ethan felt the weight of the stars on his shoulders. Each star a sun, each sun a possible world, each world a multitude of lives counting on him. The task was daunting, but the fight for justice often was. He pored over the data once more, strengthening his resolve with each number and chart. Tomorrow he would stand again in the council chamber, armed not just with words but with the promise of unity. The storm was gathering, and he would be its harbinger. The grand chamber of the Galactic Council hummed with anticipatory energy as delegates from across the cosmos convened for what was to be a pivotal session. The vast room, its walls alive with the soft glow of starlight filtering through the enormous glass dome overhead, was filled with the diverse murmurs of hundreds of species. At the heart of the chamber, the central podium awaited the day's proceedings, casting long, slender shadows across the polished floor. Captain Ethan Stark, standing amid his small yet determined human delegation, scanned the gathered crowd. His gaze lingered on the imposing figure of Ambassador Zorax, who was surrounded by a group of similarly stern-faced allies, their whispers sharp and conspiratorial. Today Ethan would present his counter-proposal, a daring move designed not only to alleviate the crushing tribute demands, but also to shift the power dynamics within the council. As the session commenced, the grand speaker called the room to order, and a hush descended like a cloak. Ethan stepped forward, his uniform immaculate, his bearing that of a seasoned diplomat as much as a military officer. The air felt charged, every delegate attuned to the human who dared challenge the status quo. "Ladies, gentlemen, and esteemed beings," Ethan began, his voice resonant and clear. "We stand at a crossroads. The demands placed upon us threaten not only the stability of our economies, but the very spirit of cooperation that founded this great council." He paused, letting his words echo in the chamber, watching as nods of agreement rippled through the audience. "Instead of increasing our tributes, I propose an alternative, a technology-sharing initiative that would bolster our collective defenses and enhance our economic resilience." Murmurs filled the air, some skeptical, others intrigued. Ethan continued, outlining the specifics of his plan. This initiative would allow all member species to contribute their unique technologies and innovations to a central pool, accessible to all for mutual advancement. Ambassador Zorax rose, his height commanding attention. "And why should we believe this would be sufficient to protect our interests?" he challenged, his tone dismissive. Ethan met Zorax's gaze, unflinching. "Because, Ambassador, it fosters not only defense but growth. It encourages contributions that are sustainable, not crippling. It builds trust, not resentment." The debate that followed was intense. Delegates questioned, probed, and deliberated. Ethan, supported by Adrian and other allied delegates, addressed each concern with data, projections, and most importantly, a vision of a united galactic community. As the session drew to a close, the council was abuzz with discussion. Some were swayed by Ethan's compelling argument, others remained skeptical, but all recognized the boldness of the proposal. Back in his quarters, Ethan reviewed the day's events with his team. "We've started a conversation," he said, a slight smile breaking through his usual stoic demeanor. "Now we need to keep the momentum going." Outside the window, the stars shone with the indifferent light of billions of years. To Ethan, They no longer seemed distant. They were a reminder of what was possible when beings from across the galaxy shared a common goal. As he turned from the window, the reflection that stared back at him was one of determination. The battle was far from over, but for the first time in a long while, there was hope. A hope not just for humanity, but for the galaxy at large. In the aftermath of Ethan's bold proposal, the Galactic Council's headquarters became a hotbed of political maneuvering. The corridors that once whispered with the usual flow of diplomatic subtleties now resonated with urgent hushed conversations and the hurried footsteps of delegates seeking alliances. The ambiance of the station shifted. The weight of impending decisions seemed to bend even the artificial gravity that held the metallic floors beneath their feet. Ethan Stark, back in the war room with his team, assessed the data streams flickering across the multiple holographic displays. His mind was a whirlpool of strategies as he reviewed the support and opposition metrics pulsating on the screen. Each point of support was a breath of relief. Each point of opposition, a knot in his stomach. Zorax isn't going to take this lying down, Minister Adrian Vale cautioned, studying the latest intelligence reports. He's been rallying his bloc, and they're pushing back hard against your initiative. Ethan nodded grimly. We expected this. It's time we step up our game. Lara, what's the status on the surveillance sweeps? Commander Lara Venn, who had been coordinating with the security teams, turned from her console. We've picked up increased communications between the Talaxian delegation and several unaligned members. It seems there's a concerted effort to sway the swing votes before the next session. The gravity of their situation was clear. They needed a countermeasure to expose the underhanded tactics that might be at play. Ethan decided on a more direct approach. It's time we brought this into the light. Gather evidence of any illicit dealings. It's not just about passing our proposal now, it's about preserving the integrity of the Council. As the days progressed, the undercurrents of discord among the Council members grew more pronounced. In public, debates raged over the merits and pitfalls of the technology sharing initiative. In shadow, bribes were offered, threats made, and loyalties tested. During one clandestine meeting, Ethan and Adrian intercepted a data transfer that outlined a substantial financial incentive offered to a delegate from a smaller system in exchange for their vote against the human proposal. Armed with this information, they organized a discreet meeting with a few key undecided delegates, presenting the evidence of corruption. This is what we're up against, Ethan disclosed, his voice steady but charged with an undercurrent of frustration. A system that favors those who can buy power and silence. Is this the future we want for the Galactic Council? The impact was immediate. Shocked by the revelations, several delegates began to reconsider their positions. The tide was slowly turning, but the victory was far from secured. Meanwhile, the Talaxian bloc, sensing the shift in the winds, escalated their tactics. Several minor but strategic human outposts suffered unexplained system failures and logistical disruptions, hinting at a covert sabotage campaign. Lara Venn, coordinating the defense efforts, faced one of the most challenging tasks of her career as she maneuvered to safeguard these critical points without escalating tensions into open conflict. As the next council session loomed, the atmosphere on the station was electric, charged with the potential for change or chaos. In his quarters, Ethan reviewed his notes for the upcoming debate. The stars outside his window a tapestry of light against the dark, a silent audience to the drama unfolding within the council's halls. Determined, Ethan understood the gravity of the coming days. This was no longer just a diplomatic spat. It was a battle for the soul of the Galactic Council. The turbulence they were experiencing was just the beginning. As the twin suns of the host planet cast their first light through the massive viewing ports of the Galactic Council station, Ethan Stark stood silhouetted against the panoramic expanse of space, his thoughts as turbulent as the political storm unfolding around him. The critical session was hours away, and the station buzzed with the kinetic energy of a galaxy on the brink of transformation. In the tactical operations room, a converted conference suite filled with pulsating screens and data feeds, Commander Lara Venn orchestrated a ballet of defensive maneuvers. Reports of sabotage had intensified overnight, with 3 more human-operated mining outposts experiencing mysterious power failures. Her team, a diverse group of specialists from various human colonies, worked tirelessly, their faces lit by the soft glow of monitors, tracing and counteracting each incident. "Ethan, we've secured the outposts with minimal damage, but this feels like a distraction," Lara reported during their morning briefing, her voice tinged with concern. "I agree," Ethan replied, his eyes narrowing slightly. "Sorax is clever. He's using these skirmishes to dilute our focus. We need to keep our eyes on the council vote. It's what this all comes down to." Back in the political arena, Minister Adrian Vale leveraged his extensive network of allies, old and new, to fortify support for their initiative. His suite had become a hub of diplomacy, where cups of steaming beverages from across the galaxy were shared over whispered negotiations and firm handshakes. "The evidence you've gathered against the Thalaxians is compelling," Adrian murmured to Ethan as they reviewed the latest endorsements from several key delegates. "It's time to present it to the Council. Transparency may well be our strongest ally now." As the Council convened, the chamber was a mosaic of tension and anticipation. Each delegate wore their formal regalia, the colors and patterns a vibrant testament to the diversity of life forms represented. At the heart of the chamber, the Grand Speaker called the session to order, her voice echoing majestically throughout the vast space. Ethan took the podium, the gravity of the moment settling upon his shoulders. He began by reaffirming the virtues of their proposal, his words resonating with earnest conviction. But as he transitioned to address the underhanded tactics employed against them, the chamber grew palpably still. "With due respect to this esteemed assembly," Ethan said, pausing to ensure he had the attention of every delegate, "I must bring to light actions that threaten the very integrity of our council." He then detailed the evidence of bribery and sabotage, each allegation backed by incontrovertible data, displayed for all to see. The reaction was immediate and varied. Some delegates expressed shock, others outrage, while a few seemed uncomfortable, perhaps guilty. Sorax, for his part, stood stoically, his face an unreadable mask, though the slight clenching of his jaw suggested his growing fury. The debate that followed was fiery and passionate. Ethan, supported by Lara and Adrian, navigated each accusation and question with a calm precision, their case bolstered by the undeniable truth of their evidence. As the session drew to a close, the Grand Speaker called for a vote. The silence that followed was suffocating, the tension palpable as each delegate cast their vote. When the results were finally announced, it was clear Ethan's proposal had passed, but not without cost. The chamber erupted into a cacophony of reactions, some celebratory, others condemning. Outside, as the station orbited peacefully among the stars, the galaxy seemed unaware of the small but significant shift within its political heart. For Ethan and his team, this victory was a testament to their resilience and the power of unity in the face of adversity. As the first rays of the twin suns filtered through the grand windows of the Galactic Council chamber, bathing the room in a warm golden light, Captain Ethan Stark stood quietly at a viewport, watching the slow rotation of the station against the backdrop of the vast star-filled expanse. The monumental victory from the previous day's session had reverberated through the corridors of power, shifting the long-standing dynamics within the council. The chamber was quiet in the early morning, a stark contrast to the fervent debates and charged atmosphere of the day before. Ethan's thoughts were a mix of relief and contemplation, pondering the path forward. The technology-sharing initiative he had championed was now officially adopted, setting the stage for a new era of cooperation and advancement across the galaxy. Yet, he knew that the road ahead would be fraught with challenges as old structures resisted the winds of change. Minister Adrian Vale joined him, his presence a steady comfort. "You've done something remarkable, Ethan," he said, placing a hand on Ethan's shoulder. "You've not just reshaped policy but redirected history." Ethan turned, offering a small, weary smile. "We did this together, Adrian, and we'll need to stick together even more going forward. The real work starts now." Indeed, the implementation phase was set to begin. Across the galaxy, member worlds prepared to open their vaults of knowledge, sharing revolutionary technologies and innovations, from terraforming kits and advanced medical technologies to efficient energy solutions and enhanced propulsion systems. The exchange promised to uplift all, distributing progress more evenly than the wealth and resources had ever been. Commander Lara Venn was already coordinating the logistics, ensuring that the first wave of exchanges was carried out securely and equitably. Her office was abuzz with activity. Communication lines opened to various corners of the galaxy, each conversation a thread in the new tapestry they were weaving. "The first shipments are ready to go," Lara reported later that day, her eyes bright with the excitement of the endeavor. "We're seeing enthusiastic compliance from almost all sectors." Ethan nodded, pleased but vigilant. "Keep an eye on any discrepancies, Lara. Not everyone may be happy about this shift in power." As the days passed, reports flowed in of successful exchanges and collaborative projects launching. Universities, research institutes, and even previously isolated worlds were engaging in unprecedented levels of cooperation. Skepticism gradually gave way to optimism, and an air of celebration replaced the previous tension within the council station. However, not all were pleased with the changes. Isolated incidents of resistance and sabotage continued to occur, remnants of dissatisfaction from those who had benefited from the old system. Ethan dealt with each case with a firm but fair hand, guided by the principles of justice and transparency that had won him the victory. 6 months after the initiative's launch, the council convened again, this time to review the progress and adjust any measures as needed. Ethan stood before the assembly, proud but humble, as he delivered a comprehensive report on the strides taken and the hurdles overcome. "As we stand together, united in our diversity, we are not just sharing resources but building bridges," Ethan concluded, his voice resonant in the now silent chamber. "Let this be just the beginning of what we can achieve as a galactic community." Applause broke out, echoing through the chamber, a sound of approval and agreement that resonated deeply with all present. It was a sound of hope, of a future being forged by unity and shaped by shared dreams. As Ethan walked back to his delegation, the twin suns setting behind the rotating station, casting long shadows and bathing the chamber in hues of dusk, he felt a profound sense of accomplishment. They had set in motion a change that would ripple through generations.